Hey, I'm Randy, and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we concentrate on high-value home theater and hi-fi equipment. And today we're talking about the Aiyima D03. It is a DAC speaker amp. Okay. So, sit down, grab a cup of coffee, maybe out of your daughter's art coffee mug. Isn't this cute? And let's talk about the Aiyima D03. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. We have videos from home theater to hi-fi to even DIY. It's a lot of Y's. So click the bell notification so you know when all the videos go up. Now, if you want to support me and you don't want to spend any money doing it, consider signing up for Amazon Music. One gets now high-res music with all the Amazon Music. It's $10, or it's actually $8 a month if you're already a Prime member, but you get like 3 months of Amazon Music for free. Here's the thing though, you get 6 months of Disney Plus for free. So even if you're just gonna get it to try it out and you want to get some free awesomeness from Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney, just sign up. I do get $2. If you sign up for it, I get $2, but cancel it. That's an easy way to support me. Today's sponsor is Martin Sheen's port plugs. Let's face it, sometimes you don't have great placement options when you're putting your speakers in your listing room or living room or wherever else it is. And you can get some boomy bass because you might have to have it too close to wall if it's rear ported or what have you. That's why Martin Sheen stepped up and designed the state-of-the-art audiophile port plugs. What you do is you take this and then you insert it into the plug and you mitigate some of that bass so it doesn't sound as bad. And then you can implement and blend your subwoofer better. Remember, Martin Sheen's port plugs, they're audiophile rated. They're $72.97. Martin Sheen's port plugs. The Aiyima D03, or maybe it's a 03. I can't tell if it's a 0 or an O, so we'll call it the D03. It is a DAC amplifier, so it's a speaker amp. It's currently selling on Amazon for $160 and is rated, at 150 watts into 4 ohms. But let's discuss that. So they claim the rating into 8 ohms is 60 watts. But I took a look at the chipset data sheet from Texas Instruments, and the rating is given at 6% total harmonic distortion. So the rating of 150, and then it changes when you go down into their description. It says it's 120. So anyway, the Texas Instruments data sheet does say 150. But bear in mind that's at 6% total harmonic distortion. So actual usable power is going to be less. The good news is I did not have a problem driving anything off of these, and I never felt like I was stressing it out. It comes with a 32 volt power supply. On the back, one has a full-size USB connection, a full-size optical, a full-size coaxial, RCA ins, a subwoofer out. All right, and then your speaker binding posts, and it's the usual speaker binding posts. They accept banana clips. They're not awesome, but they're not bad either, and frankly, they're very usable. The DAC chip inside is a Cirrus Logic 8422, and however they have it implemented, it sounds quite nice. It also has Bluetooth. Here's a head scratcher. So the Bluetooth on the website or on the Amazon listing claims that it does aptX and aptX. Actually, it says aptX, aptX LL, and AAC. However, when I looked up the chip only supports aptX and aptX HD. And you'd think if it supports aptX HD, they would be screaming it from the rooftops. But whatever chipset is in here, it appears that it supports aptX and aptX HD. also will support SBC. I didn't see where it said it supports AAC. I could be wrong, but when I looked up the chip set manual thing, it says that it supports aptX and aptX HD. All right, dead horse. We're beating a dead horse at this point. And it kind of doesn't matter because it sounds great. And one of the sound signatures or characteristics of this amp is it's not ultra detailed, and or the DAC amp. So you can't really say, oh, the DAC is this and the amp is this, because it's all one piece, unless you're just running an RCA into it. Point being, this is a great implementation, but it is not the most revealing package when it comes to a Class D amp. That is not a bad thing. And I will say this, I think Aiyima is doing a great job. I raved about the A07. I think it's a fantastic sounding amp and it has volume control. And I also raved about the Aiyima T8, which is a DAC and a preamp. Actually, it has a RCA in, has Bluetooth, and also has a headphone amp, and it has a little tube in there. So that product is a lot of fun as well. This is going to be a very high recommendation. Bear in mind though that the power ratings are not what you're not gonna be able to use all that power, because it's going to start distorting and you don't want to fry your speakers because they're clipping. Okay. The construction on here is quite nice. It's a metal case. It's dated. These look pretty dated compared to an SMSL or a Topping or a Sabage. So they look dated. But let's talk about that. So if we are looking at how a product appears, the Sabage and the SMSL look awful similar. This looks awful similar to Fuzzy Audio. So they're probably coming out of the same facility. Good news is Fuzzy Audio is really good. I've had a bunch of Fuzzy Audio products, not a bunch, I've had a few Fuzzy Audio products in. I've had a bunch of SMSL products in, and I have Sabage in. They all look good. But this is what I would consider, and not from a sonic perspective, but from a build perspective and really an aesthetics perspective, a bit of a step down. It's a bit more dated than SMSL or Topping. I don't really care about that, especially in something with this form factor, because you could even put this vertical somewhere and you're not even going to see it. So if you're in a desktop situation, or if you're using this to run your TV and maybe kind of do a little bit of a soundbar replacement and have 2-channel in there as well, and it has a sub out, this is a great product to consider. One of my favorite things about the Aiyima, obviously, is how it sounds. There is a lot of Class D amplifiers coming from SMSL, Sabage, and Loxg that use the Infineon 12070 amp chip. Now that chip is very highly regarded, and I can understand why. It has a lot of detail, reveals a lot. I feel, however, that Aiyima has kind of taken the pendulum the other way. Now Aiyimaz are much fuller on the bottom, not nearly as detailed, but the Aiyima, to most people, is going to sound like a pretty decent Class AB amplifier. And I like that. Some people say Class Ds sound thin. And actually, I would agree. Most Class Ds can sound thin. But one of the first products that I ever reviewed was a Fuzzy Audio BT20A. It's a little Class D amp. And I never thought that amp sounded thin. I thought it sounded pretty good. You're sacrificing a little bit of detail on the top end, or maybe a lot of detail. I'm not saying it's not detailed, but compared to the Infineon 12070 DAC amps, which SA300 from SMSL, the DA9 from SMSL, Sabage A20, the Loxg A30, I believe, those all use the Infineon 12070. Now they may use some other chips in there as well, but those are the amplifier chips. This is a Texas Instruments amplifier chip. I can't remember which one it is. I have it written down, but it doesn't really matter because it's actually different than the A07. But the A07 and the D03 sound very similar, and it is a very balanced sound signature and a very non-Class D sound signature, and I'm not saying all Class Ds sound the same, but I have listened to a lot of Class D amplifiers, and they all sound fairly similar, with the exception of the Aiyima A07, the Aiyima A03, and some of the Fozzy amps. Now, even with that said, some of the upper tier Fozzy amps actually have that similar sound signature to the Infineon 12070 chips. This one does not. With the Aiyima D03, you're getting a very balanced sound signature, which is going to pair with really any speaker out there. So this is an amp that's not going to cover up or complement any speaker specifically. It's going to complement every speaker. Whereas some of the other Class D amps with the Infineons, they probably should be paired up with a more neutral to even warm speaker. This can be paired up with even more lively speakers. Think Klipsch, think SVS, think Yamo. This is going to go very well with those, but it's also going to go well with really anything, because there is nothing that is offensive about this amp. If you are looking for finite details, then this is probably not the amp for you, and you're probably going to want to look to spend a little bit more than $160. However, at $160, if you don't mind the way it looks, which one really shouldn't, I don't think one can get much better than this. The Lox-G is great, the A30, it's fantastic. Similar price. Oh, the DAC in here does $24,192, which is perfectly fine for me. I don't need anything more. It's not as polished. It does come with a remote control. On the remote control, you can do bass, treble, so tone controls. Pretty simple, but it works, and you can do volume control with it as well. Interesting thing about this amp, the Aiyima D03, I never touched the tone controls, and that's one of the first times with a very affordable Class D amp that I've never had to touch the tone controls. It just sounded great. I tested this mostly with the ELAC Unify reference, which is it's not a completely hard to drive speaker, but it's not a really easy to drive speaker either. 6 ohm nominal. This thing did just fine. I really didn't get past about 50% of the volume span. So I don't think you're going to have an issue driving most speakers with this, depending upon input voltage and things like that. But if you're getting it from a computer or Bluetooth from your phone, I don't think you're going to have an issue with it. You're not going to get the rated power out of it, though, at any usable level. So just keep that in mind. This thing is probably still a good 60 watts into 4, clean watts into 4, and probably 30 to 40 watts into 8. So that's more than people think it is. It's going to drive just about anything. And think about this. Receivers that you can go out to Best Buy or whatever that have like 125 watts per channel, normally that's into 10% total harmonic distortion. So this thing's going to drive most things just fine. Great package, very versatile. You can use it as a sound bar replacement or to build a system around it. You can use it for digital input switching. So one gets 3 digital inputs, coax, USB, and optical, and a subwoofer out. Now, all the subwoofer controls are going to have to be done on the subwoofer, of course, so crossovers, gain, levels, things like that are going to be going to have to be done on the subwoofer. But for $160, I actually prefer the sound of the Aiyima over a lot of the SMSL SA300, which good, very good DAC amp, but I have to EQ that DAC amp. Even the SMSL DA9, which is a balance, and I love that amp, but I have to EQ that amp to get it to where I love it. Sabaj A20, again, have to EQ it. Lox-G A30, again, have to EQ it. One of the first ones right out of the box that I'm not touching tone controls on it, and it's very good. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night we have Patreon-only Zooms. We also have a Patreon-only Facebook group. You can also use any of my links in the description. Well, not any of them. Most of the links in the description are affiliate links, which means if you click on it and you buy it, I get a commission. Doesn't cost you any more, so it's a great way to support the channel.